So I'm the technical manager at CIBSE, and I'll take you through a very brief overview of how we incorporate Engineering Council principles in our guidance. Apologies, there's a bit of a delay in switching slides. So it's been incorporated for a while in that we have the 2017 Engineering Council principles embedded in our Code of Professional Conduct, and we reminded our members of it in our latest Guide on Sustainability in 2020, which came just before the Engineering Council published the revised sustainability guidance, but it's quite similar in the spirit, I would say. And GuideL, our sustainability guide, is really the main framework for what we tell engineers to do on sustainability. And I don't expect you to read it, but we gave a prominent place to the Engineering Council principles. We actually did also to the SDGs. So if I had known, I would also have included a bit of information about this. Going more into the details of what the guidance we give, GuideL is a little bit different for us in that typically CIBSE guides are really about engineering design and they're quite detailed, while GuideL is a framework and an introduction and, as Terry was saying, a way of thinking about sustainability. So we have chapters that are about actual design and operational guidance, but the first parts of the guide are about defining sustainability, again using the Brundtland definition. We have chapters that we call the Age of Limits to explain that whole concept of we have no planet B and we're reaching the limits of resource use or exceeding them in some cases. And then we have quite a few chapters about the role of engineers in sustainability, their advocacy role, how to work together, how to convince clients, what might motivate them, etc. So very much more strategic than a lot of our design guides. And really, the first two parts of this guide about what is sustainability and the role of engineer, I would say, respond almost directly, even if that guidance wasn't there, to four of the principles in the Engineering Council sustainability guidance. So contributing to a sustainable society, applying professional and responsible judgment, taking a leadership role, going beyond minimum regulation, etc. All of this is really translated in the built environment in these first chapters of GuideL. Looking more at the design guidance, so the design chapters of GuideL, again, I think they echo very well the two remaining principles of the Engineering Council, i.e. use resources efficiently and effectively and manage risk. And my favorite, which is a very big theme for CIBSE, is monitoring of impact. So in-use monitoring, evaluation, disclosure of performance in order to continuously improve. This is really in all of our guidance, and it's probably, to me, one of the most important principles of all. So that's about GuideL only. But there are, of course, other ways in which CIBSE embeds and works with the Engineering Council. And I think a big part of that is our CIBSE Climate Action Plan, which we published 2.5 years ago, which addresses all the areas where we think as a professional institution we can and have a duty to act. And two of these areas are very clearly education and competence and training, where obviously we align and where we can go further the requirements of the Engineering Council on climate competence and climate education. This is just to let you know that GuideL is an introduction, it's strategic guidance only, but for anyone in the built environment, we obviously have much more detailed guidance, including a guide on health TM40, and a whole host of resources around net zero carbon. So you can find them on our website. For net zero carbon, we cover both the operational and the embodied aspects. It's misleading. Sometimes people think that because we're engineers, we only care about energy in use and maybe water in use, but actually we care about resource use and doing things efficiently. That's in our nature, and that also applies to embodied carbon and use of materials. So we have quite a lot of resources on this, including our latest TM65, which Clara worked on. And I will leave you now, apologies for the clicking, with Clara, who is an associate at Elementa and was the CIBSE representative on the working group for the guidance. I'm not sure why the slides have disappeared again.
Thanks, Julie.
And try to go back. Can you see the slide?
I think they're going to come through.
Okay, because it was supposed to be yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Julie. So I sit in the environmental and sustainability team at Elementa, and I'm quite cross-disciplinary. I work as a mechanical engineer, but I also carry out energy and overheating modelling. More recently, my focus has been setting net zero energy strategies at an early stage, both looking at operational and embodied carbon. I'm briefly going to talk to you through the 6 principles of the guidance on sustainability and how I implement these, or how I try to implement these in my day-to-day job to try and get a kind of clear understanding of how they can be implemented. I'm going to rattle through these because I don't have much time. I suppose, firstly, with contributing to building a sustainable society, present and future, my focus is designing buildings, and I care about the environment, I care about sustainability because I care about people. So how can we get these people to live low carbon lifestyles? So it's about how can I design the building, how can I choose a low carbon heat source, good fabric, low energy use, can we look at reducing the water consumption through low flow taps and various bits. How can I make that building as easy as possible for that resident to live a low carbon lifestyle? Moving on to the second principle, I think it's really important to lead by example. Regardless of if the client is asking about sustainability, always talk about it. I always try to when we're kind of evaluating which different systems to include, we always talk about what that means for energy use, for carbon. When I'm in design team meetings, I'm always kind of telling people how we can make the building more sustainable and asking how they are too. Anybody in the design team can question that and make sure that everybody's really engaged. And I try and go beyond environmental sustainability and encourage social sustainability elements as well. So if we're installing heating systems that reduce carbon, let's make sure they're not increasing costs and things like that. So it's having a holistic, broader view. Moving on to number 3, which I think is my favourite principle. 4 years ago, I was really frustrated that London policy in London wasn't delivering the step change that was needed. I started talking to other people about it, writing blogs, writing articles, and this kind of spiraled into this voluntary organisation called LETI. And this is where we really means that you can engage with like-minded individuals to try and create change. In 2019, we realised that all new buildings needed to meet zero carbon by 2030, but didn't actually know what that was. So over the course of that year, we developed actually what does net zero mean? What are the key performance indicators? How do we define good, and how can we kind of shape all buildings that we're working on to meet net zero? And we did that. So I think we successfully challenged the status quo there and pushed beyond regulation to define good to meet our climate targets. Go to www.leti.london for more info on that. And other things, it's really important to respond to consultations, so you can really show your local authority or MHCLG or BEIS how you think that the policy and legislation should change to meet our climate targets. Moving swiftly on to point 4, using resources efficiently and effectively. On the projects I work on, I look at the whole life cycle assessments, really understand the environmental impacts of the decisions that we're making, make sure that I set key performance indicators on projects that look at a wide range of sustainability indicators, that might include energy and water use, refrigerant leakage, social indicators, all so that this can be tracked throughout the design phase, so we can really make sure that the project is delivering its sustainability ambitions. And the fifth one is about seeking multiple views. I think the key thing is listen more than you talk. And even if you think you're the expert in something and you're in a team in a meeting, listen to everybody else, because that means that we're much more collaborative. We learn from each other. We're not siloed, and we can really implement those sustainability principles. And lastly, point 6, my focus is monitoring in use. So actually, are we delivering the sustainability outcomes, the low energy use buildings, the low water use buildings than we thought? So it's really important to monitor that, take account as an engineer on that, and feed that back into the lessons learned to the next project. Thank you.